Now, we travel a little bit further across the border from Kolkata to Dhaka, from where we have the honor of having Rafiq Azam, who heads Shatoto from Dhaka. I had the honor of opportunity of seeing Rafiq's work exhibited about 10 years back in London at Reba. And what really struck me was the kind of delicate and almost fragrant relationship that Shatoto's work has with nature. There are allusions to breeze in his work, but more to the idea of water, water in the air, water in the landscape, and perhaps water in pools. Rafiq, if I can have you on the stage, please.
Thank you, Madhav. It's a great opportunity for me to be here today. I'll not probably going to talk about the photography, probably using photographs to share my ideas and understanding and realizations. Lalun is one of the most famous philosophers from Bangladesh from 18th and 19th century, even far before than Freud. He talked about the human is a composition of two things. One is the soul and another is the shell. Europe didn't know that, as Heidegger says, I think therefore I am, but we can actually think. I mean, if we can think, then we can stop thinking also. Probably we cannot stop thinking. So thinking, thoughts are different from the body. It comes into your body and go out of it. And Lalun, he actually abandoned, and he was floating from one river to another and end up probably in river Kali Ganga, another name of Ganga, and picked up in one spot, and he survived. And he survived for 115 years. So water was the existence of this philosopher. I'll talk about why I quoting this beautiful philosopher. One of my very favorite artists, he says, looking at my watercolor painting, that architecture is similar to watercolor. It should be, something like you see all the layers in watercolor one after another, and finally you can see the paper. That's the beauty of watercolor. Similarly, architecture is something, you see the layers and layers, and you finally see the land. That is important, where you belong, where you're walking actually. So Bangladesh is something, people say it's a country of toil, but I say it's a country of poetry. As you know, Bangladesh is the largest delta on earth, having more than 50 major river channels carrying water from Himalayas in an intricate pattern through Bangladesh to the Bay of Bengal. And that's why I would like to say Bangladesh is a country of poetry, not a country of toil only. How become it poetry? How come poetry comes? When monsoon comes, in inundates 2/3 of the country's land, depicting water is the major element of landscape. When water recedes after a few months, it leaves a fine layer of alluvial soil, and the entire landscape transforms into large patches of paddy fields and dancing with the winds. This is Sir Jagadish Chandra Bosu, who taught us that tree talks, tree speaks, tree has a life, and everything. He was not a botanist, he's a physicist. He had hard time to prove to the world every inanimate object has a life. And actually there is no line in between inanimate objects and animate objects. It's just for our own convenience, we draw a line. So he went in the middle path, proving the tree has life, it speaks, it communicates. He did so many things that Einstein himself says we should build many monuments for these scientists for his each and every invention. And this is why Louis Kant says, he asked the brick, what do you want to be? And it answered, an arch. This is poetic, but this is also scientific. As Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose says, everything has life. And Critias boy, so 350 BC around, it's also all about, relaxing body, having full of life and soul into it, and just standing, not trying to run or throwing the discus or charioteer as we saw usually. It's doing nothing but having full of life. So this attitude of having life into the embedded life is so long, so old. And Michelangelo's Moses, you see, he's all talking about, he's actually revealing the life from the stone. He's unleashing the life from the embedded stone. So, do architecture have life? I think it has. As Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose says, it has embedded life. That's why the old building, historical building, you go, you feel like to touch it, because it starts speaking to you, because it's embedded so much of energy and so much of passion. The people worked with that is now still inside, so you can invite you. It starts talking to you, dialogue with you. And Lalon Fakir says, one thing is not inside your body, then it is not outside the body either. So human is a composition of two things. One is body and another is mind. And the thoughts come into your body and goes out of it like a bird. So with the same space we are seeing at now is changing because the light is changing. So it has a relationship with architecture, like a human form. We can only produce the envelope, which can be very scientific. We need to know how the sun moves, how the wind moves, when the rain comes, which direction the fragrance comes and come into it in the envelope and goes out of it like your body. You cannot control anything. So I think Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose, Lalon Fakir, these are all people fundamental for architecture in our country. So this project, I'm showing just two projects, this one, which is purely coming out of a square and additional spaces. In the middle, there's an empty space, basically, that has been created like a nirvana. The intention was not to create the house, rather creating the emptiness in the middle, where the soul and cell cohabit and purify themselves. Because they are independent, they are interdependent, they belong to themselves and belong to each other also. And how the whole Mother Nature actually merging to each other, even the upper levels. And the inclined sun in the winter touching inside the house. And the silence of the light, it's creating the impact. The soul is now inside the house. And the light will go back when it's evening next. Just like Jalaluddin Rumi says, when light returns to its source, it takes back nothing what it illuminated. But I say, Rumi, no, it touched the wall which has embedded energy and life and the silence of light. Think, a dingy boat by the ghat, silence of light, patch green, unfolding nothingness where soul and cell cohabit and purify themselves. Let the soul come inside your house and let go of it and let it be and let it be. But this coming and going back of the soul out of your body, the day will come when the soul will never come back to your body. And you will be declared dead. Dead requires space also. I was thinking, what is dead? Just like the Lalon Fakir says, Khachar bhitor ochin pakhi kemne ashe jay. The birds, how they come and go out of your cage. I thought it's just a line in between. We are in terrestrial, and we can be anytime crossing that line, going to be in the celestial world, simply. I stretched the line up, and I found a window, basically. We can look through from this terrestrial world to the celestial world, and we can cross that window anytime and be other side. So this window is spreaded like a twilight, a spread space, a threshold space basically, which connects and divides also, the day and night, connects and divides. The window stretches up, where it is the space created basically, where you can go and sit and think you are in between death and life. So that's the section of the window. And the context is very, very rural, sort of beautiful watercolor. So we put our strong signature, strong idea. Next slide. It's the space, threshold space in between life and death, an opening. From terrestrial, we can see the celestial. Next. And the celestial, and the space we can go and sit. Next. And the space in the silence of light in the morning. Next. And of course, in the silence of twilight. And the dark night is all waiting for us. It's all waiting for us, and go and sit and think silently, and silently, and silently. What you have done, what you have to do, is all about thinking. Because Jalaluddin Rumi says, the silence is the language of God. Rest all are poor translations. Thank you very much.